Okay, let's get started. This is a very important topic. It's very much interconnected to the whole of your syllabus. In particular, with respect to GS, it is important from governance point of view in GS. Coming to the control systems, can you relate control system to one topic which we have already discussed? Which is that topic? We have already discussed a topic that is nothing but the control systems. What is that? We got an answer. Okay. Voice not audible. Okay. Am I audible now? Not right to information. We have discussed already control systems. What are these control systems? Why these control system? I'm giving a hint. Why control system? By control system, what is happening? One important thing we are bringing in. Okay, let me give another clue. It starts from A. Okay, good. Don't you think these are the things we discussed? Control mechanisms here are there to bring accountability of civil servant, right? This is system managing, okay. Right? So control system refers to the mechanisms to curtail corruption. This includes to detect, punish, curtail corruption. Okay. Okay. Indirectly, you are also right. Okay. That was a message. Okay. So in control systems, generally we have got four. One is penalty and another is internal control, means within the executive. The second is external. In external control, we'll be studying two important things. They are audit and judiciary. Afterwards, we'll see how social control can curtail corruption. Having said that, let's begin. Penalty method is the most widely used, most commonly used, and these will be typically in the form of legal nature, means laws are formed. So implementing those laws, through implementing those laws, you are imposing penalty, and this can range from prison sentences to termination of employment to recovery of assets acquired illegitimately. Example we have seen. Next, here one important thing that you have to internalize is control measure. In control measures, penalty in many cases, though it is very stringent, it is not effective. The example you can take up the Thai Penal Code, which is significant, which has got very high punishment for those who are involving in corruption, to the extent of life imprisonment or death penalty for an offense convicted of corruption. Yet, Thailand figures among the countries with largest level of corruption. So this you can quote as an example. This has been quoted in the second ARC itself. Okay. Next, like what should be there to make this penalty effective? At the minimum, there should be termination from the government employment. So this is very important. Just like imprisonment or fine won't deter. Minimum, the basic minimum thing we should be termination from the government employment. Where employment in civil service is highly regarded and brings prestige, and dismissal means disgrace to the entire family. Since dismissal leads to the disgrace or a kind of shame to the entire family, the members of family have an incentive to discourage corruption. This is very important. See, at the end of the day, we live in society, we live in family, where we act as one. When the family is not incentivizing you or not withholding you from involving in corruption, the chances are high that you will involve in corruption. So, so termination from the government employment becomes a very important thing. If there is simply like penalty like 10,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees, this may not bring shame to the family. So termination is a very important tool. Stipulation prohibiting employment in of such civil servants in private sector, very important, makes the cost of indulging in corruption even high. As given in second IRC, it's present in Korea. They have not mentioned whether it's South Korea or North Korea. They have just mentioned Korea. So here they are saying that if a person is found guilty, say for example a constable, a IAS officer, IPS officer, if anyone is found guilty, they should be prohibited from employing in private organizations also. And prohibition in respect of re-employment was extended to sons and grandsons of a person found guilty of corruption. This example we have already discussed. Where did we discuss this example? We discussed this with respect to values, ethics, morals, and attitude, as whether they are static or dynamic. The answer was relatively permanent. Since these values are relatively permanent, even the son and his grandson may have the same values. So it is better to see that at least one generation is prohibited from any government employment. Okay. In fairness, penalty should be directed at not merely those who receive bribe, but also those who pay. This is very important. This is not present in many countries. It's only in US that it is present. Not only the bribe taker, bribe giver also should be punished. This we have discussed in two headings, that is with respect to coercive corruption and also collusive corruption. In US, applying these kind of laws is easy because there are very less chance of coercive corruption there. As we studied, as the economy progresses, as the economy is liberated from the state, collusive corruption will be high, coercive corruption will be low. In America, coercive corruption is very less, right? This unfortunately is not the common practice. That is, punishing the bribe giver is not the common practice, and most countries have been shy of punishing those who pay bribes. The major reason is in majority of the countries, these are developing countries where citizen is at the mercy of the state. For example, subsidies or any benefit oriented scheme. So here, coercive corruption is very high. So they are not punishing. But when we go to Western countries where the concept of democracy, everything came very long before, their coercive corruption is less. Only United States imposes sanction against multinational companies offering bribe. So this also you can take a very important example. Okay. So this is yet another important topic. Many of you are not aware, like what are the control measures, control systems, mechanisms to curb corruption at the center and state level. Penalty levels, it's common one, You have got general idea, but as students of civil service, you should have a fair idea as to like how internal control system that is within the executive act. This also we have studied with respect to methods of corruption, sorry, with respect to mechanisms of accountability. Now let us discuss these things in detail. Here, in a crisp way, second ARC has explained the complete mechanism with respect to the internal control system with reference to corruption. Let us see one by one. At the central level, all departments have chief vigilance officer. Very important. This point you won't find in many places. In all departments, there will be one person named chief vigilance officer. He will be assisted by vigilance officer down the line to handle complaints of corruption and disciplinary proceedings. This is with respect to all departments. As you are aware, Secretariat consists of sum total of all ministries and departments. In each department, say for example, Department of Social Welfare. So in that department, there will be one officer known as Chief Vigilance Officer. He will be the person who will be taking care, who will be looking into the things with respect to the complaints of corruption and also the disciplinary proceedings. So Chief Vigilance Commissioner in all departments, important to be noted. We have Central Vigilance Commission to advise central government in respect of all matters pertaining to maintenance of integrity in administration. Here, Central Vigilance Commission is very important. This is the apex body responsible for maintaining integrity in administration. Means if you want to take any disciplinary action, especially the higher up bureaucrats, they have to consult the CVC. So it is the apex body with respect to maintaining integrity. CBI collects information, conducts checks, searches, and takes necessary action to bring corrupt to book. But the fact remains that combined effect of all these anti-corruption bodies have not been able to rise the stake of corruption. Right? So here, what are the points which you have to keep in mind? Number one, in all departments at the central level, we have got Chief Vigilance Officer, and also we have got Central Vigilance Commission, which is the apex body which look into the integrity aspect of administration. Along with that, CBI is also involved. But all these things are not effective. Then coming to the states. With respect to state, at the state level, similar vigilance and anti-corruption organizations exist. Similar means similar to the center. Although the nature and staffing of this organization vary between and across the states. Here, though they are modeled, though they are similar to the things we studied, CVC and Chief Vigilance Officer, there is a lot of diversity when it comes to between the state and among the states. While some states have vigilance commissioners and others have anti-corruption bureaus. So in many states like Andhra Pradesh, they are popularly known as ACB. ACB right in the Anti-Corruption Bureau. And as a part of police department, this is important. This anti-corruption bureau is not a separate or independent entity. It is part of the police department, right? What are the two types present in state? One is vigilance commissions. Second is anti-corruption bureaus. Okay. State vigilance commission. The state vigilance commissions, wherever they exist, are patterned on the Central Vigilance Commission and headed by a person with the status of Judge of High Court. The state vigilance commissions are empowered to examine complaints against covered civil servants. In conducting investigation, state vigilance commissions are assisted by police officers on deputation from the state government. Here, one important thing is these central vigilance commissions are to a greater extent independent, and here it is not part of police. It is not part of police. In fact, police do come and they come on deputation. Means once they come, they will be under the full control and supervision of the State Vigilance Commission. They come on deputation. Okay. Some states are having Lokayukta. Some state governments have set up the institution of Lokayukta, an anti-corruption institution which is legally independent of the executive. Means according to law or according to act, it is independent. So why they have explicitly said legally independent of executive? In reality, they are not independent. Although the institution of Lokayukta was set up following the recommendation of first Administrative Reform Commission, there is a great deal of variation in the structure of the institution across the state. The important point is Lokayukta as an institution was formed after the recommendation of first Administrative Reform Commission. The second is the one recently we had those things. In general, there is an impression that the institution of Lokayukta has not been given the degree of independence which is necessary for it to function effectively as an autonomous anti-corruption body. So this is a, in fact, reality. And you just think, in which state do the people, do the legislature and also the executive want a person who is having all the power to see that there is no corruption? No state wants this. In fact, as you might be aware, the India what we have, the India what we have is not because of any of the after independence. The India what we have is not because of any of your PM, CM or anyone. It is just because of all India services. Can you elaborate how? The India what we have is just because of all India services. Let me explain this. Say for example, you go for any state. Think that now Jammu Kashmir is a state. Think that it is not a state. Jammu Kashmir is a state here. Here we have got two types of officers. One is central government and another is state government officers. But there are some services which are common to both, that is known as all India services. So this aspect is very important. Okay. So there was a message. Okay. This aspect is very important. Please internalize. Say for example, state government. Police is a state subject. So state has full authority with respect to the subject of police, and law and order is a state subject. Say for example, in the recruitment of constable, there is a lot of corruption. In the recruitment of SI, there is a lot of corruption. In the recruitment of DYSP, once again, think that there is a lot of corruption. And also, all these people are inclined towards the some or the west, some or the other Western interest. Say, for example, we took up the case of Jammu and Kashmir as a state. Here, some or the other way, their value system won't allow them to act independently, impartially. There may be many reasons, maybe caste, religion, clan, something like that. But one important thing, the most important thing, what happens is in any state, at the top, you have got IPS. It is the IPS who are ruling. Similarly, with respect to all departments, whether it's revenue or any department, at the top of all departments, you are having All India Services. This is a law. Even the people who join the state services, they get promoted and they become All India Service Officers. After that itself, they will be exercising the power. India, to a greater extent, is in the form which Britishers left because of All India Services. Say, for example, now we take the other example. Take the example of our Northeast. These people are not similar to us. Their religion is different. They look different. Their language is different. Their race, ethnicity, everything is different. Then it is very difficult for these people to be part of India, to say that we belong to India. One of the reasons is these areas are not that developed. Here, in reality, Government of India means All India Services. Whatever may be at the lower level, when it comes to the top, it is the All India Services in all the states. This is one of the feature which transgresses the federal feature. In most of the countries where federal features are found, this is not present. There will be one with respect to state and another with respect to center, but there won't be something which is common to both. And also this will be having complete hold on the state subjects by way of being in top positions. Okay, right? Is my point clear? The India what we have is because of All India Services. Otherwise, it would have not been there. Okay. In general, there is an impression that the institution of Lokayuta has not been given the degree of independence which is necessary for it to function effectively as a autonomous anti-corruption body. So they have not given the sufficient independence. They have formed legally it is independent. Legally it is all powerful, but in reality it is not. The common refrain in the complaints of Lokayukta of various states is that they do not get sufficient information from the government departments which could enable them to function effectively. This is very, very important. Why Lokayukta are not able to function properly, effectively? Because the departments are not giving the information. If they don't have any information or appropriate information, how can they take? How can they work? How can they bring the culprit to the book? Not possible. So here, when coming to Lokayukta, limitations are independence. The required independence is not given or they are not completely autonomous. Second is sufficient information is not provided to these people from the departments. Okay. In India, internal control system has not worked. Why? Can anyone think of why internal control system means the executive controlling the other executive is not working. Why it is not working? Okay. There is a collusion. There is a collusion at work at all levels of the government. We got a message. Extra politicization. Okay. There is a collusion at work at all levels of government and a share of the gains from the corruption. So here, like you may not be aware, in the hierarchy, in all the government departments, there is a collusion. Means all are involved here. all are getting the benefits. And also the money moves up the hierarchy. Say for example, a constable has to give money to sub inspector. Sub inspector connects money in that area and he has to give money to DOSP, means all sub inspectors have to give. Then all DOSPs have to give to their upper. Then they have to give to him. So here all are involved in corruption. So they won't take action, right? There is a collusion at work at all levels of the government and a sharing of the gains from the corruption. So they are sharing the gains which they get by being corrupt. As a result, there have been very few cases in which corruption is reported. Even in those few cases, there are usual delays and soft actions which characterize the process in the which characterize the process of investigation in India. First and foremost, there is collusion. Here, collusion is implied that there is sharing of gains, right? Then next case is, since all these people are already involved, they are taking things very lightly, and especially the cases won't be made known to all. Even if you come to know, or even if someone is booked, there is a long procedure, and also there are very like slow processes. Second one, investigating and prosecuting agencies are not independent. The person who is investigating and the person who is prosecuting the culprit, they are not independent. This we are talking as part of internal control system, means control system within the executive. Investigating and prosecuting agencies are not independent of the executive. It is the executive who will be having control with respect to many important things, especially in the form of appointment. While they are appointing, they appoint those people, any anti-corruption body, they appoint those people who can support or who will support them in future. In other words, working of investigative and prosecutive agencies has not been insulated from the possible interference of the executive. A regular means normally common vehicle, regular vehicle means common way of interference has been power of the executive government to appoint and transfer key functionaries of the investigating agencies. So, say for example, when government changes, they generally change the people who are working in anti-corruption bodies. The reason is they have got this power and they want to put those people who are helping them. The result has been lacks of investigation and prosecution. So because of this, the investigation is not being done properly, right? So it is not independent of executive, first point. Then you may ask how they are not important. They are in the form of transfer and appointment. These things will be in the hands of the executive. By these things, he somehow controls. Third, there is a willful sabotage of investigation process. Sabotage means it is deliberately damaging or destroying the things. Even in few cases which end up being investigated, there is willful sabotage of investigation process. Investigating and prosecuting agencies are not independent by a non-partisan professional body like Director of Prosecutions in United States and Special Independent Counsel in sorry, first one was United Kingdom, second one Special Independent Counsel in United States. These are independent and very powerful. On the other hand, our investigative agencies are not having this power, right? The fourth one, the final decision to proceed against the corrupt civil servant criminally or punish him departmentally rests with the executive department. Since the final decision is taken by the executive, he generally won't take the things that seriously or punish them with stringent measures because he will be having the backing of all the people who are involved in corruption. There is a collusion here. Even autonomous anti-corruption bodies like Lokayukta, headed by individuals with judicial background, can only recommend prosecution or departmental action for consideration of the executive government. We just read that Lokayukta is legally independent of executive. Even if it is independent of executive, the findings of Lokayukta are just in the form of recommendations. Only recommend prosecution and departmental action for consideration of the executive. So executive is the final decision maker with respect to these cases. And in such cases, the collusive network ensures that the decisions goes in favor of the corrupt civil servant. This you might have come across. Just think, you all are aware that corruption is everywhere. How many IAS and IPS officers have been booked under corruption since independence? Because they are everywhere. Very few, very few will be booked, and you will see all the drama in the TVs, the people riding, taking crores of money, and have you ever followed like they being sent to jail, imprisoned for life? No, it's just what you see is just the first step. They being caught. Afterwards, generally they are not punished. The prosecution process itself goes for years. By the time all might have forgotten, right? Okay. Procedural snores. The procedural snores involved in the proceedings are just too many. Snores means you can say hindrance or the slow movement, snail leg kind of things. For example, there are 12 stages. See here, 12 stages in the departmental action. Here, it is not with respect to the judiciary. They are not produced in the court of law just for departmental action. Say, for example, if constable or some individual has done some mistake, to punish him within the department, there are 12 steps. Think if each step is taking simply on a hypothetical basis, if it is taking 1 month, just the process itself take 1 year if everything goes right. This stages starts with the preparation of definite charge sheet and end with imposition of penalty. And numerous stages are procedurally necessary. Why these 12 stages are necessary? Because of the constitutional safeguards guaranteed to a civil servant. Since Constitution itself has guaranteed some rights to civil servants, it becomes very necessary that you follow more number of steps. In fact, safeguards provided to civil servants in India are more demanding than any other country. So somehow this is a British legacy because when Britishers left the country, most of the civil servants were very anxious. Like, how can we survive here? All these days, we were just listening to what you have said. We have opposed the freedom fighters. We are in opposition to the local people for many respects. If you leave us now without any safeguard, how can we survive here? To overcome that, Britishers insisted to give insisted the Indian government and also the Pakistan government to give some safety, that too in the form of constitution. Okay. In fact, safeguard provided in India are more demanding than in most of the countries. Means the safeguards what civil servant in India gets are comparatively very high. The constitutional safeguards have generally worked in favor of corrupt. So these were made to see that innocent is not punished. But who is taking the advantage? It is the corrupt who is taking the advantage of all these things. Internal control systems in India, status and problems. On the whole, internal control system in India, impressive as it on the paper, has not worked. Internal control system means the control of an executive by another executive has not worked. There is a proverb in Bengali that says that if there are ghosts in the mustard seed, how will the same mustard seed exorcise the ghost? Exorcise means drive out or attempt to drive out. So you think it over. This is a very powerful phrase. It is given in the second ARC itself. If there are ghosts in the mustard seed, like you just can say, if you are not getting, if you cannot imagine, ghosts in the thing that groundnut seed or even any rice, if the ghost is present in the seeds itself, how will the mustard seed drive this ghost away? So what is the inner meaning you are getting here? So think that this is a mustard seed and think that this is a devil. So how can this mustard seed drive this devil or ghost away? So the implication here is that for control system to be effective, it plants the ghost again. Okay. The implied meaning is that there should be some external control measures, right? And it is not possible for the executive to control their own staff. Then coming to the external method, audit and judiciary. So here to begin with, what do you understand by audit? And what do you understand by judiciary? Okay, leave apart audit. What do you understand by judiciary? Think, no need to type also, think. If someone asks you in the exam, like, what do you understand by judicial system? Explain. Okay. Judiciary and also executive plays a very important role. You got a message? Providing justice. Okay. Audit, an official inspection of the organization's account, typically by an independent body. So what does audit in simplest form means? Sorry, in simplest form, audit means inspection of the accounts. Just it says inspection of the accounts. Generally, it is done by independent body, and generally it is external, means not present within the system. Say for example, CAG. CAG is independent and also external, is not present within the executive. Coming to judiciary. So these are very precise and very authenticated things. According to second ARC, judiciary is the system of courts. So the first point with respect to what is judiciary, it is the system of courts that interprets, defends and applies the law in the name of state. Very, very powerful statement. So generally we discuss the other way. Judiciary can be also thought as the mechanism for resolution of the dispute. This also can be used, right? So if someone asks you what is judiciary, in simple terms, you can just say it's a mechanism for resolution of disputes. Mechanism for resolution of disputes. To be precise, you can say that judiciary is nothing but a system of code, a group of code. What they do, they interpret, defend, and apply law in the name of state. So, in the name of state, in the name of government, they are applying, interpreting, and defending the laws. Sorry. Under the doctrine of separation of powers, judiciary generally does not make statutory law. So here, very important, can judiciary make law? What is your answer? Can judiciary make law? The answer should be no. But there are some countries where even judiciary does make common law, right? So as we have discussed, in the separation of power, the things are interpretation of the law. Okay. In the separation of power, we have got legislature, executive, and judiciary. These are separate and independent in their own respect, in their own spheres. So, generally, courts won't make any law. Under the doctrine of separation of powers, the judiciary generally does not make statutory law, which is the responsibility of the legislature. And at the same time, judiciary does not enforce the law, which is the responsibility of the executive. It is the executive who enforces, who execute the laws. For this purpose, he made rules. But judiciary interprets, defends, and applies the law to the facts of each case. However, in some countries, judiciary does make common law. So these are exceptions. But judiciary does make common law in some countries, but not in India. Okay, coming to the external controls, we just discussed as to what is judiciary and what is audit. External control systems acts as a formal mechanism of restraint and in an administration that provides for separation of powers, checks and balances are exercised by other branches of the government. In India, an external control system is fully in place. It consists of external audit and independent judiciary. Sorry. External control system acts as a formal mechanism of restraint and in an administration that provides separation of powers. So, for example, in our case in India, we have got separation of powers. Checks and balances are exercised by other branches of the government. Because of these checks and balances, the control measures works. In fact, the control measures are in the form of checks and balances. In India, external control system is fully in place and is consists of external audit and independent judiciary. Now let us see why judiciary is ineffective with respect to audit, how we can make audit effective, what is the present scenario. Let us see all these things. Audit. The system of audit represented by Comptroller and Auditor General CAG. The CAG is an independent authority created by the Constitution. The independence of audit is provided by the Constitution itself, and also by a law or act. Okay. There is a system of audit represented by CAG. CAG is independent authority created by the Constitution. The independence of audit is assured by providing it protection. The independence of audit is assured. How the independence of audit is assured? Number one, by protection and also privileges under the provisions of Constitution. Number one, its independence is further reinforced by enumerating the power of the audit in the legislative enactment. Legislative enactment will be in the form of act or law. So this is known as Controller and Auditor General of India, Duties, Powers and Conditions of Service Act 1971. This is the one which is governing the COG function, right? What are the conditions under which audit can be effective in tackling corruption? Please go ahead. Just think, however wrong it may be. Just in 30 seconds, you have to answer this. Or if you don't answer, it doesn't matter. Take a like rough sheet and just write. How can we make auditing effective? Now you know the meaning of audit. How can we make audit effective? You can take the precise thing as to COG. Okay. The most important thing which has to be done here is audit generally in the form of post-mortem, in the form of post-mortem report. So when will we do the post-mortem? Post-mortem after a person has died. Similarly, audit is generally done after an act is done. Means already corruption has taken place. So second ARC says that audit and the action should go hand in hand. Independent organization to conduct official. Okay. Sorry. So one of the thing is it is of the post-mortem nature, or we can say that there is a lag. This lag should not be there. Let us discuss this. Conditions for audit to be effective in tackling corruption. Audit should be independent of the executive and external to it. Very important. Say in the chapter like CAG in polity, these points are not mentioned. So how to make COG effective? COG or any audit person effective is number one, they have to be independent of executive. Means executive should not have any power of like transfer, appointment, salary, anything like that. They should be completely independent of the executive and external to it. Means that should be outside the executive. The independent and external audit assures expenditure control by exposure and sanctions against the corruption. The COG in India is independent of the executive and also external to it. So first and foremost condition is it should be for audit to be effective, it should be independent and also external to the executive. In India, we have got CA who is independent and also is external to the executive. It has also been given power and the means and the resources to scrutinize corrupt practices by the civil servants and recommend action. So here too, COG is not taking any decision. They are in the form of only recommendation. This also can be taken as one of the limitation. To make audit effective, their recommendation should be binding. If that is there, it will be effective to a greater extent. Second, there should be mechanism to act on the observations of the audit. So, say for example, CAG has come up with a report. But what if there is no mechanism with respect to acting on the findings? There should be mechanism to act on the observations or findings of the audit. In India, such mechanisms exist, but in practice, the executive in India has been reluctant to act on the observations of the audit. So here in India, CAG is external, CAG is independent, and also the third point, there is a mechanism to act on the observation. There is a mechanism to act on the observation of the audit. So what is the mechanism? Those of you who have completed polity, what is the mechanism to act on the observations of the audit? Okay, we'll discuss that. Public Accounts Committee, right? Third, no significant lag should be caused between the acts of corruption and their exposure in the audit. That is, audit and action on it should be quick so that the corrupt civil servants are brought to book on the basis of the audit report well in time. I repeat this. No significant lag should be caused between the acts of corruption when the corruption is done and their exposure in the audit. Means audit and the action should be concurrent. As the process is going, the audit also should go along with that. That the audit and the actions on it should be quick so that the corrupt civil servants are brought to book on the basis of the audit report well in time. But because of the delays in audit, the slow process involved in the consolidation of the audit reports by Public Accounts Committee. See, this is one of the limitations. What is the mechanism to look into the audit report? It is a Public Accounts Committee which look into the audit report. But there are delays with respect to this also. Because of the delays in audit and slow process involved in the consideration of the audit report by Public Accounts Committee, this can also be taken as a limitation of Public Accounts Committee, a very important aspect, especially from the prelims point of view. Often they are asking this committee. The limitation here, you can say that it is taking long time and the process is very slow. The impact of audit as an effective instrument of restraint has only been marginal, means very little. In fact, as is the common practice, audit report relate to transactions which are several years old. The report what the CAG will be giving, these are of several years old. During the intervening years, it is very likely that the civil servants who were involved in questionable practices might have been transferred to other departments. See, these are the reasons why we cannot hold civil servants accountable. Say, one person has gone to another department. Once again, investigating, prosecuting him, bringing him, all these things are very, very difficult. And also, since there is lag, there are high chances that that person might have retired. And in worst cases, in many cases, they do die. Because, as you are aware, civil service is having a career system. Means they move up the ladder as they proceed in their career through promotions. So those who are at the top are generally very senior officers with like 1 or 2 years of service. By the time the audit report is out, by the time they are about to prosecute, many are transferred and many are retired and many might have died also. Impact of audit. In fairness, audit does create an impact. So, what is the situation? What is the status in India? Audit does create an impact, but only marginally. You cannot say audit is ineffective. It does create effect, but the efficiency or effectiveness is very, very low, marginal. The report of COG does a great deal of agenda setting for the national debates on corruption in high places. So, based on the COG report, there will be a lot of debate. In fact, when the COG report is out, the opposition party will be waiting as to what is there, what are the wrongs. And based on that, there will be national debate on corruption in high places. But in most cases, time lag between the actual act of corruption and reporting about it in audit is very big. So here, with respect to India, major limitation is time lag, right? How time lag? Generally, Public Accounts Committee is taking the audit reports for examination too late, and also sometimes the processes are very, very slow. Okay. So Fifth Pay Commission has certain suggestions to give. According to Fifth Pay Commission, audit should try to be concurrent as possible. Means has to the extent possible, any act and the audit both should go parallelly. To be precise, concurrently means they have to go together. They have to go together. Scandals and scams are known even while they are being planted. So when the audit is concurrent, when the audit is going along with the act, generally we'll come to know if something is fishy, something is wrong. We'll come to know the things beforehand. Sorry. Scandals and scams are known even while they are being planted and executed. If audit draws attention to them, forthwith, in the well publicized manner, such scandals can halt the mild stride. So, if these things are reported very early, we can halt the scandals when they are half done, when they are just in the process itself. Otherwise, what happens? Already the work is over. Already corrupt activity is been done. After that, it will be just like a postmortem report. Postmortems are useful, but only to be conducted while the patient is dead. Right? So, what is the meaning? Postmortems are important to know what has happened. Why do we do a postmortem? This is one of the most important thing. If someone dies, postmortem report, you will come to know the real reason for his death. But the main default is here the patient should die for that, right? Similarly, in audit, if they are not concurrent, already corrupt activity is being done. There is already looting. After that, we'll find out whether the things are right or wrong. Postmortems are useful, but can only be conducted when the patient is dead. It is better to cure the patient and try to keep him alive. So, to keep the patient alive, post-mortem report are not that efficient. Okay. Judiciary. Judiciary in India is to a greater extent independent, and also it's very strong. Now, please let me know what are the reasons, like we can take the other way, what are the merits and also demerits of Indian judicial system. What are the merits and demerits of Indian judicial system in controlling corruption or anything in general? Please think it over. Okay. Okay. We'll take 10 minutes break and we'll reassemble. In the break, you think over the merits and demerits, the strengths and weaknesses of the judicial system with respect to India. Right? We'll come back after the break. Judiciary is independent. The time lag is the major drawback. Okay, great. Any other? Any other thing? Think it over. Just these 1 or 2 lines won't suffice. Put more points, right? Judicial review. Okay. Okay. We'll take a break and we'll get back, right? Okay, good. Some like you have come up with the innovative point. Good. Let us discuss the ineffectiveness. Here we are concentrating on why judiciary is ineffective in curbing the corruption. Like that is the thing. But in general, judiciary in India is independent and it is powerful. But when come to the limitations, as mentioned by Yashaswini, there is very slow movement. The things are very slow in court. The major reason for that is judiciary cannot act on its own. Say, for example, one person has killed someone. So, what is the punishment? Is described in the law, criminal procedure code. They have to follow that. This is cumbersome. One of the reasons why cases are getting delayed, like general public are not aware, is the stringent laws which they have to apply, the codes which they have to apply. These are the general things. Okay, apart from that, let me ask a question for you in general. In our government, we have got three things: legislature, executive, and judiciary. Here, none of these things are superior, all are equal. If, my question is, if we want to give, if we want to give some extra power, then to which branch, we should not give extra power among the three? Is it LE or judiciary? Why? My question is, okay, we got answers already. Legislature. Maybe here our social influence is working. Here, in fact, it is the executive. Why? Because executive is a person who is having all powers in reality. Legislature is not having the money, judiciary is not having the money. It is the executive who is having the real power. So, if we give little more extra power to judiciary, little more power extra to legislature, it won't affect much. But if you give extra power to the executive, then there will be more corruption. Say, just think, control measures, what we are thinking, what we are dealing with, we are dealing how to control the executive. That is the thing we are doing. Did we ever discuss like how to control the legislature? Did we ever discuss like how to control judiciary? Take the other case like accountability. Though the term accountability is mentioned without any attachment, Here we are talking about the accountability of the executive, because he is the person who is executing, right? Like, will you agree with my point or you say wrong? What is your opinion? Okay. Moving forward, the judiciary ineffective instrument, because number one, this we are discussing not in general with respect to controlling corruption, combating corruption, and the control mechanisms which we have, control systems. Not too many cases are brought before the court. Here, executive who is involved, who is implementing the things, is the person we are specifically looking into. Generally, not too many cases are brought to the court for trial. This is because of the fact of power of sanctioning prosecution, the act of carrying out on a legal action against the person accused of the crime in the court in corruption cases rests with the executive. And as we have seen, number of cases that have been sanctioned for prosecution have only been only few and far below, right? So here, say for example, an IAS officer is found guilty of corruption. Then it is the executive who has to give permission, whether it's in the lower order or the higher order. Executive is not giving permission to most of the cases. Here, one point you have to keep in mind, this we are talking with respect to prosecution, not departmental inquiry. So generally what they do, instead of handing over the case to the court, they will see the things within the department itself. They will set up a departmental inquiry and try to sort out the things there itself. Too many cases are not brought to the court. That is one thing. Second, the prosecutorial system has laid down in the Indian laws and followed in corrupt cases is weak and unprofessional. So second, as it says that the prosecutorial system, the process involved itself is weak and unprofessional when it comes to corrupt cases. This we can take back to the British legacy. Though we got independence in 1947, nearly 80% of administration things relating to administration are directly taken from 1935 Government of India Act. The point which you have to keep and internalize here is, these were the laws which were made at British time to protect the executive, to protect the civil servant who was acting on behalf of the British government, right? It has been difficult to obtain evidence, particularly of the kind required under the acts to prove corruption and obtain evidence. So, in most of the movies, also you might have seen. In most cases, it is very, very difficult to hold a person saying that he has done something wrong in a legal system. The major reason is they also have to follow certain procedures, laws. As I already explained you, judiciary cannot take its own decision. It follows certain laws. It punishes based on some laws and codes. Here, Indian Evidence Act, it provides the processes and procedures through which we can produce the evidences. So these things are not in line with bringing the corrupt to book. The last one, it has been difficult to obtain the evidence. It is very difficult to obtain the evidence, particularly the kind required under the Act. It is in the beginning itself, getting evidence, the kind of evidence required to prosecute, to punish that person is not available. Third, long delays in obtaining a decision from the courts in corruption cases has been a significant barrier. It is not uncommon to see a corrupt civil servant being convicted long after the crime, and in most cases, only after the civil servant has retired. In other words, there is no judicial effectiveness. Judiciary is not effective with respect to bringing the corrupt person to book. Here, for this particular thing, the reason is the courts are working very, very slow. Long delays are there. There is no judicial effectiveness, and the judiciary in India seems to be incapable of expeditiously disposing of cases. They say that inherently in our judicial system, what we have, which is the legacy of British, it's so firm that we cannot move the cases fast. So by this logic, we cannot directly blame the judiciary, because the process and the systems which we are built up with are like that. Next, the most important one, Article 311. In fact, second ARC said that this article should be removed, repealed. And coming to Article 311 and the courts, the interpretation of the Article 311 by court is in such a way that it always benefits the person who is accused of corruption. There are many other things, as we already discussed, as if to compound the matters, the safeguards and procedures prescribed under Article 311 have been so interpreted by the courts in India as if to ensure that the case goes in favor of the corrupt on the technical ground. So while interpreting this, Supreme Court is interpreting this in such a way that it benefits the accused. In fact, Santanam Committee on Prevention of Corruption rightly remarked Article 311 of Constitution as interpreted by our courts has made it very difficult to deal effectively with corrupt civil servants. So here we are talking about the people who are in the higher hierarchies, the senior bureaucrats. The Santanam Committee itself says that the way the courts are interpreting Article 371, it is very, very difficult to punish any civil servant. Even after Article 311 was amended, the panoply means the extensive or impressive collection of safeguards and the procedures still available is interpreted in such a manner as to make the proceedings portrayed and therefore affect ultimate analysis. Though the article was amended, even in the present form, the courts are so interpreting that the corrupt are getting the benefit. So, second ARC says that there is a need to revisit this Article 311. Fourth, the Supreme Court and the Article 142. So, this is a very important article. Dear students, please go home and read in depth about this of the Indian Constitution. The Supreme Court, through the liberal interpretation of Article 142 of the Indian Constitution. So Article 142 of Indian Constitution, which authorizes Supreme Court to enforce decree or orders that it considers necessary for doing complete justice in any case or matter pending before it. So the crux here is that Supreme Court can order the person who is executing the things to see that what it considered necessary should be done for complete justice. Say, for example, there is some case here with respect to the individual. According to law or according to procedure or according to the like conviction, if this method is not effective, Supreme Court can say that you please do adopt another way. You just add another thing so that this will be effective. Right? Let me simplify the thing. According to Article 142, Supreme Court has the power, Supreme Court has the authority to enforce the degree and order if it has given any judgment or any order that it considered necessary for doing complete justice. Though it is not present, though it is not norm, if Supreme Court feels that this is the way you have to do the things for complete justice, then that has to be done. Right? Judges of Supreme Court have gone to the extent of personally supervising the process of investigation. See, this is under Article 142. Here, Supreme Court feels that if this supervision of the case is given to someone, the chances of getting the correct book is very less. So, in many cases, Supreme Court itself has taken over the case, and judges of the Supreme Court are made to supervise the things. The judges of Supreme Court have gone to the extent of personally supervising the process of investigation under 143 because they feel that these things are necessary for complete justice. The proactive stand of the Supreme Court of India has created the desired impact, definitely. But this event at its best can only provide a lead because all the cases are not brought under Supreme Court. And in fact, under the Prevention of Corruption Act, the main act which deals with corruption, the cases have to be brought before the ordinary court, not the Supreme Court. Here, only Supreme Court is having that power. Most of the cases, most of the corrupt cases are brought under the ordinary courts. Most corrupt cases, however, have to be brought before the ordinary courts as required under the Prevention of Corruption Act. So, Supreme Court can just provide a lead, just act as a guiding star, but that is not sufficient. Why? Because as provided in the corruption of Prevention of Corruption Act, all the cases are brought before the ordinary courts, which don't have this power. So if judiciary has to act as an effective instrument of restraint, the necessary burden has to be borne by the entire judicial system, not merely the Supreme Court of India. Right? Sorry. Okay. Official corruption can very broadly be divided into two categories in a broad way. That is corruption of scams, means like big corruptions, bigger corruption, corruption of with respect to big scams. As in case of large contracts and big favors at the higher levels of the government, this normally involves politicians directly. It is in respect of scams that Supreme Court of India has been successful in taking an activist stand. Sorry. The Supreme Court is in fact effective, but it is taking those cases which are of high magnitude, macroeconomic scale, where like top politicians or top bureaucrats are involved. The second type, the other variety, is the retail corruption. This is extraordinary corruption that we have discussed with the title of coercive corruption, coercion. which touches the lives of most citizens in the country. The retail corruption is the most widespread. The Public Affairs Center's recent studies provide evidence on the extent of retail corruption in India. Public Affairs Center, this is an organization. According to these studies, every fourth person means one in four, every one in four person in Chennai ends up paying bribe in dealing with agencies such as Urban Development Authority, Electricity Board, Municipal Corporation, Telephone. Right? So in corruption, if four people go to these officers, at least one will pay the bribe. While in Bangalore, it is 1/8%, and in Pune, 1 in 17. So Maharashtra and Karnataka are better than Tamil Nadu. Clearly, retail corruption is widespread and deserves to be addressed with the same degree of seriousness as scams, if not more, because it touches the lives of citizens in myriad, like countless ways. Right? So here the point is that Supreme Court in particular and judiciary in general is able to curtail corruption at the higher level. And these are with respect to the cases which are brought in front of them. But it is not able to control the corruption at the grassroots level. And four conditions to act as an effective instrument of restraint. When can judiciary act as an effective instrument of restraint against corruption? The four conditions are: number one, independent judiciary, judicial enforcement, free access to judiciary, judicial effectiveness. So now this is one, two, three, four. Please let me know among these which of the following are not present in India? Judicial independence, yes, we have. Then what about the other? Do we have judicial enforcement? Three, say two, three, four. Do we have two, three, four? Okay. In India, we have got one, two, three, but the third one, judicial effectiveness, is absent. Judiciary is independent and it is capable of enforcement, and we have got free access to judiciary, but it is not effective. The judiciary in India is independent. There is a judicial enforcement. The judiciary in India is capable of enforcing its decisions. There is access to justice, but there is no organizational efficiency in the judiciary in disposing of the cases without long delays. This is a very important thing. Judiciary in India as an organization is ineffective. There is no organizational efficiency. As an organization, this is not working efficiently. Social control. Now, think it over. How can social control curb corruption? How can social control combat corruption? Just think for 30 seconds. Social control. Here we'll be discussing the concept of social control. We got a message. Right to information. Okay. Social control. This we'll be discussing under three head. Need of strong and vigilant civil society. There is a need of a civil society which is strong and vigilant. Number two, civil society in India and citizens' voices. Under these three headings, we will discuss social control, as given by the second ARC report. Need of strong and vigilant civil society. A strong and vigilant civil society can be a check on corruption and form the basis for countervailing, that is, offsetting an effect by countering with something of equal force or action. I repeat, a strong and vigilant civil society can be a check on corruption and form the basis for countervailing action. So countervailing action here means if other things are not working, then it can act as a force to curb corruption. Corrupt states bound in anti-corruption bodies and watchdog bodies, which eventually end up concealing and protecting the corruption instead of punishing it, because no one outside the state structure is in a position to demand accountability if the results are unsatisfactory. Very important. So in most of the cases, these anti-corruption bodies or watchdog organization, these are not effective. The main reason is there is no one outside the entity, organization, which can impose restrictions or which can force them to act correctly. No one outside the state structure is in a position to demand accountability if something is not done correctly. Even the most comprehensive set of formal democratic institution may not be in a position to produce the needed accountability in the absence of a strong and vigilant civil society to energize them. I repeat, even the most comprehensive set of formal democratic institutions, all like you take all the institutions, democratic institution, maybe judiciary, maybe audit, or any other mechanisms, horizontal or vertical accountability mechanisms, they may not be in a position to produce the needed accountability if there is no societal pressure. In the absence of strong and vigilant civil society to energize them. Civil society in India, the present, like what is the present status of civil society in India? The hangover of the old attitudes and inhibitions. The hangover of old attitudes and inhibitions continue to persist. This has been in two ways. First, the civil society in India is not too keen to look into the actual processes of the state. See, you have to connect this to the old attitudes and inhibitions what we have. We, even after getting independence, our attitude has not changed. During the British era, when Britishers were ruling, this attitude was present. Means they were not keenly looking into what is going on in the state. The same has continued now also. Second, there is a shared belief and inheritance from the past once again that it is perfectly all right for those occupying public offices to use the state, its structure and resources in a manner they choose, that is in furtherance of their private interests. Don't we have this? We do have this. Have you ever come like most of us have come across people using government vehicle for public purposes, sorry, private purposes, their children, their wives, their daughters, they will be moving. But we never object that. Why? That is the hangover of the old attitude. We think that, okay, it's okay. What will happen? There is nothing wrong. An IS officer's son using the government vehicle. There is no problem. We think like that. That is one of the bad thing. That is the reason why we are not able to curtail corruption. The main dimension, of course, is that civil society in India does not have a common vision or value so far as corruption is concerned. So, second, as he says that in India we don't have a common vision as to what is corruption, what is not corruption, how to curb corruption. Some feel that if an IAS officer takes money, it's okay. So we don't have, whether it's good or bad, we don't have a shared common vision. Some feel that it is not good, some feel that it's okay, some feel that it's bad. So by this way, there is no common vision, commonly shared vision so far as corruption is concerned. It has not developed strong and legitimate norms about what is right and what is wrong. And as a result, it is not in a position to promulgate code of good practice. So it says that our law systems, our rules and regulations, the laws what we form, the rules what we form, are the reflection of what is good or bad according to us, what people think right or wrong. When people generally, when they think, okay, it is okay to be corrupt, if that is there in my mind, in their mind, the laws will also imply the same. Laws won't be that effective. It has not developed a strong and legitimate norms about what is right and wrong. And as a result, it is not in a position to promulgate code of good practice. If all the people had a common vision that corruption is wrong and it has to be punished, then we would have had strong and legitimate norms. And then we would have promulgated good code of conduct, code of good behavior. In democracy, that is the reason Aristotle, while speaking about democracy, says that it is just like a flattery. It's just like a flattery. What is there? What is happening in democracy? Take the examples. Say, for example, there are many chief ministers. Say, for example, in Andhra Pradesh, Y.S. Jagmohan Reddy, in Karnataka, B.S. Yediyurappa, and many others who are found guilty and who have gone to the prison, jail. They have come back now. But people still choose these people. Aristotle says that a person who is a person who is like unethical chooses a person who is unethical. Right? Are you getting the point? He says that when the society is full of unethical people, definitely these unethical people will choose a person who is unethical. Okay. This perhaps explains the fact that although quite a few groups are working in the area of civil liberties and human rights, there are not many groups working in the area of fighting of corruption. Okay, before that, like we left a point here. Since there is no widely shared popular conception, since we don't have the exact shared vision as to what is right and wrong, which can be used as a benchmark to judge the behavior of the civil servants, there has been no judgment at all. Since we don't have the exact perception as to what is right, what is wrong, who is corrupt, who is uncorrupt, we are not able to come up with a standard benchmark because our laws and our rules and regulations reflect what people think right and wrong. Here, what people think right and wrong with respect to corruption is ambiguous. So we are not able to come up with stringent laws. H.D. Shourie, of, so that is the reason Second ARC says that there are many civil society organizations which are working in the area of civil liberties, the freedom of the citizens, and human rights. And there are not many groups working in the area of fighting corruption. H.D. Shourie of Common Cause had put up a brave but solitary fight, mainly through the courts against corruption. So, this is one case that you can take an example. The only other group is Samuel Paul's Public Affairs Center in Bangalore. It is better known abroad than in India. So these are the two organizations which are working against corruption. So these two, like you can note down and you can use in your essays, even in ethics case studies. Civil society organizations which are working against corruption. Information. The information about the government is a precondition for any meaningful anti-corruption effort by the civil society. See this you can take right to information, information sharing and transparency. So for that you can use these points. Information, if you don't have the information, how can we proceed? Information about the government is a precondition, the basic minimum necessity for any meaningful anti-corruption effort by the civil society. In India, a citizen was entitled to have access to government information only if he could satisfy the authorities that his life is affected by such information. So because of this, there was no information at all, and they were not able to curb corruption to the greater part of the things. Official Secret Act, this we will discuss in detail when we speak about information sharing. So here one point which you have to keep is there are few instances. Second ARC says that there are few instances where secrecy is needed. There also secrecy is needed. Why? Just to uphold public interest for the larger public good. We are maintaining something secret. Why? In the larger public good. If this secret is not helping the public, it is not in the interest of the public, then that secret should be revealed. Right? Official Secret Act was a convenient smoke screen to deny the members of the public access to government information. In fact, in the Official Secret Act, everything is almost made as a secret. It should not be shared. So if someone asks about information, they will just show this act. The bottom line is that knowledge is power, and therefore Official Secret Act is a handy weapon in the hands of civil servants to hand on to such. Sorry, the bottom line is that knowledge is power, and therefore Official Secret Act is a handy weapon. Official Secret Act is the weapon which the bureaucrats, which the government is using, handy weapon in the hands of civil servant to hold on to withheld as much of it close to their chest as possible. Means they are like keeping the Official Secret Act very close to their heart. Means they are trying to put every aspect of the governance under the Official Secret Act. It has the blessing of the ruling politicians who in any case would secretly wish to account for their dubious decisions. So senior civil servants are not giving information. The reason is they're showing Official Secret Act. See, under Official Secret Act, it is said that you shouldn't give. And this is also having the backing of the ruling politicians. Second ARC has recommended that Official Secret Act of 1923 should be repealed. See these acts. These are nearly 100 years. These are like at that time during colonial era, these things were made. Still, we are following these things. So second ARC says that the things which are of national importance or national security issues should be separated and a separate law should be formed and Official Secret Act should be repealed or abolished. So the last one we can use for Transparency and Right to Information Act. The Right to Information Act. Right to Information Act, which has recently been enacted, is a path-breaking legislation which signals the march of darkness, which signals the march from darkness of secrecy to the dawn of transparency. So it is saying that because of this Right to Information Act, we were kept in dark, the darkness of secrecy. Now we are moving to the dawn, the morning of transparency. Right to Information Act will be a powerful means for fighting corruption. It will increase the flow of official information to the members of the public and in that sense supplement the process of effective overseeing the government processes by civil society. So these are important words. This you have to put in your Information Sharing and Right to Information Act. Right. Next, citizen voices. So what do you understand by citizen voices? Are they capable of curbing the corruption? Let us see one by one. When are social approval or citizen voices effective? When they are ineffective? Citizens' voices. Social disapproval. The case is with respect to Japan. The citizens' voices can be used to expose, denounce, and restrain corrupt behaviors. If citizens voice against the corruption, if citizens like goes on strike, oppose the corrupt behaviors, then it is very easy to curb corruption. In Japan, for example, social disapproval has been the principal means of regulating the behavior of the civil servants. In Japan, most of the civil servants are honest. What is the reason? If you are found guilty of corruption, there is a shaming from the society. Society is not approving those kind of behaviors. Say, for example, in India, it's not the case. If somebody is found guilty of corruption, we are not shaming him. Society just is approving those things, not disapproving the things. Social disapproval in Japan is expressed in several ways. What are these ways? One, social shaming of civil servants of questionable integrity. Means at the societal level, the civil servant is made to be ashamed of the things what he has done. The other is political embarrassment. As Japanese civil servants admit, political embarrassment can be a very effective form of expressing social disapproval of the official conduct. So political embarrassment means the pressure from the legislature, executive, political. Then coming to social disapproval effective in bureaucracy. Social disapproval can be particularly effective as a mechanism of restraint in hierarchical bureaucratic structure in which the top civil servants are held responsible for the actions of their subordinate. So in bureaucracy, social disapproval can act as a stringent weapon when the top officials are held responsible. Say, for example, if you like catch like someone, a sub-inspector involving in corruption, then The person who is above in the hierarchy, maybe your DYSP or SP, you should take the responsibility. The top civil servant are held responsible. If they are held responsible, then to a greater extent you can curb corruption. But it is not happening because these people are sharing the benefits of the corruption. There is a collusion here. In the Japanese system, social disapproval has played a key role in limiting corruption. The social disapproval in Japan is as much directed as erring civil servant has at the senior civil servant supervising his work. So in Japan, say for example, if a constable is caught in corruption case, the same shaming, just imagine the same thing, social disapproval, which is there for this person will also be there for the person who is above in the hierarchy, maybe your SP. If these kind of things happen in India also, then definitely things will be all right. In Japan, in cases where official misconduct is exposed in the court, the media, or the Diet, the Parliament of Japan, the impact is felt throughout the agency concerned as senior civil servants along with minister in charge suffer social consequences of resulting social disapproval. It simply says that anyone in the hierarchy, if anyone in the hierarchy is caught in corrupt cases, not only the senior bureaucrats or the officials at the top, even the minister in charge will be held responsible for that act. Do we have this kind of things in India? No. If we have this kind of things, definitely curbing corruption is not that difficult, right? So here, what is the crux? What is the when can be social approval very effective? When can the social approval be effective in the bureaucracy? When the top officials and also the person in charge, maybe political head, are held responsible and are treated equally on par with the person who is found guilty of corruption. Okay. Social disapproval effective. Social disapproval can be effective only in those countries in which the tradition has placed high premium on civil servant and civil servants on their part value the opinion of the society. When the people have great respect, reverence for civil servants, and also the civil servants respect the opinion of the people, then it will be effective. It is necessary, therefore, that civil society should come forward to denounce corruption and express its disapproval. Until and unless this happens, democracy cannot work smoothly. As I mentioned earlier, if the democracy is not working properly, we often say that in India, democracy is not working properly. Already many years have passed, but many social evils still persist. Then whom to blame? Whom to blame? In democracy, you are the king. You are the person who should be held responsible, right? So you are the person, you are the ultimate decision maker. If you can call someone as king in democracy, that is people. If you are blaming the system, then you are blaming yourself. So citizens have to be very vigilant. Next, social disapproval ineffective. Societal acceptance is essentially an expression of social capitulation, means surrendering. Societal acceptance of corruption is essentially an expression of social surrendering, submission, and it is determinantal to the detection and punishment of the corruption because citizens do not come forward to cooperate with the government in reporting corruption. How many of you who have come across corruption have reported? See, we think and speak of many things. You are all well educated people. How many of you have not seen police people taking bribe without giving any channel? These things never happen in countries like Japan. Until and unless people are not empowered, people are not voicing against corruption, nothing substantial can happen. Right? In fact, social capitalization or societal acceptance is a familiar sight in most countries, especially India. See, say for example, even like I have come across many IAS and IPS officers of doubtful integrity are very popular. Many students, many youths, they take these people as icons. You might have found the recent phenomena like IAS and IPS officers becoming like superstars in social media. This is not a healthy development because civil servants should act behind the screen. When they are acting to have more popularity, more followers on the social media, there is something vested interest working there. And we are not opposing that. We are in fact encouraging them. We are idolizing them. We are taking them as the role model. Social acceptance is a familiar sight in most of the countries, especially in developing countries. In India, we have accepted corruption. In these countries, economic development is slow. Sorry. In these countries, economic development is slow, negative, uneven. There are institutional monopolies and a lack of economic and political alternative. In many cases, lack of political alternative. Why people are voting to a person who is found to be corrupt? Because there is no other alternative, no other person to whom they can have faith on, trust on. There is no alternative. People see corruption as inevitable and efforts to fight are futile. In such a sitting, there are few alternatives to dealing with the corrupt civil servant except on their terms. And it is in the interest of the corrupt civil servant to preserve the capital situation for long as they can. So I'll read this again, very important one. In fact, social acceptance is a familiar sight in most of the countries. In these countries where social acceptance of corruption is there, economic development is slow, negative, and uneven. There are institutional monopolies, a lack of economic and political alternative. People see corruption as inevitable and effort to fight it as futile, useless. In such a situation, in such a setting, there are few alternatives to dealing with corrupt civil servants. So when the people themselves have accepted the things, then you will be left with only few alternatives. Accept on their terms, and it is in the interest of the corrupt civil servant to preserve the captive situation for long as possible. Right? Okay. So these are the things. These are I have covered, in fact, to a greater extent, the things related to corruption in general. But other things which are given in second ALC have put in one or the other way. So one important thing with respect to me teaching ethics and which is important is, as you like might have seen, I have covered everything given by second ARC. I have searched all the 15 ARC reports and anything relating to ethics paper I have put here. Especially like those of you, especially the seniors who have already completed polity and they have little mastery. Like I have never suggested in my book also. My book part one. which deals with entire second ARC things relating to ethics. I have not even written, like, put a single word of mine there, just to make that these things are accurate as given by the second ARC. That is very, very useful. You can go through. But the thing is, it is little difficult and it's voluminous. If you are a fresher, no need to refer that, right? So these are the things with respect to corruption. Okay. So Samu, like, now, like, I was about to ask, like, do you have any doubt